Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Tour Championship Data Dive Show. Before I forget, there will be no shows next week. The PGA Tour is off for 1 week as they prepare to start the 2022-2023 season. And I will be in Huntsville, Alabama for a baseball tournament. So again, no shows next week, but I will be live on Twitch all this week and probably throughout the majority of next week as well. Just no YouTube calls shows. But make sure you give me a follow at Twitch. I will be live there. Next week will definitely be more relaxed, probably more gaming than, say, golf research or anything. But if you do want to see some of that golf research, we can find something to cover, whether that's the new Korn Ferry Tour grads, prep for the Fortinet, whatever you all would like. So again, give me a follow at Twitch, which thanks to one of my subscribers here showed me or told me that the Twitch link was not in the description, so it should be there now. But other than that, we are ready for some intense data diving tonight for the Tour Championship. I put some research out on Twitter today around a couple of specific players. So if you have not seen that, go check my Twitter link and see what that is about. And I will continue to post research going into next season, but I think that might be the final 2021-2022 season research for Twitter and all that stuff. So I think that is it. If I think of something, I'll try to remember it and put it at the end of the show. But let's get to why we are here for the data dive of the Tour Championship. So all statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best resource out there. If it allows a dummy like me to find Scott Stallings, imagine what it's going to be or what it's going to do in more powerful hands like yours. Go check them out. It's simply the best tool out there. It's well worth your investment. In the description of the video, there are links, all of them now, to my social media, Discord, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all of that good stuff. So if you want to see particularly the research that I do, that's mainly on Twitter and Twitch. My betting cards, I post to Twitter every Wednesday night of the whatever tournament week we are on. So if you want to see those, give me a follow at the links in the description. And finally, we're live. Chat's open. How much have you looked at the field this week for the Tour Championship? Have you looked at the odds? To be honest with you, this might be the first time in a long, long time I haven't looked at any of the odds yet. I've been, so to say, buried in the books or buried in the weeds of the data trying to figure out some stuff to show tonight. And I think I've got some interesting stats for you all. So looking forward to it. So let's not delay it any longer. Let's dig into the weeds and dig into the data for the 2022 Tour Championship. And we start with the GCSA Tournament Fact Sheet. It is out, and I don't think much has changed from last year. Let me make sure I have both sets of chat up. And again, if you're watching via Twitch, welcome. Make sure you jump in chat there as well. But for Eastlake in Atlanta, Georgia, we are on a par 70 at 7,346 yards. So I don't believe that changed from last year. Again, it is an original Tom Bindelow design, but renovated by Don Ross and then Reese Jones recently. Average size greens, I believe the average green size is about 6,100 square feet. I always say 6,000 because nice round numbers. But these are right at tour average size greens. Quite a bit of rough. That is why the fairways are difficult to hit here. But the rough is not long. Let's see. Only 2.5 inches. So it's classified as average. By no means is it difficult to play out of. So that is why driving distance has always been longer here than the tour average event, or at least one of the factors. Another factor is that they just keep this course fast and firm. But lot of rough, 4 holes with water in play. We are on Bermuda Greens and fast lightning Bermuda Greens. I went and looked at the BMW last week. It was listed as 12.5 on the stimp. Now, I can't confirm what the stimp reading was all 4 rounds last week. Fantasy National had it listed as fast. That's all I can really go by. So if you have more exact information, by all means share. I would be curious to hear, and I'm sure the community would be as well. But we're on Bermuda, and as far as greens, the fairways are Zoysia, which was the case last week at Wilmington Country Club, I think. But this is very common towards some of the southern courses, particularly the Wyndham. We're going to take a long look at the Wyndham and the Rocket Mortgage, as those are the 2 regular Don Ross courses on the PGA Tour that are getting used year over year. And then the rough is just Bermuda. So there's a look at Eastlake in terms of a GCSA tournament fact sheet. Again, not much has changed from last year, if anything, really. Maybe the lengths of the rough and all that, but this particulars, yardage, par 70, green size, all the same. So now let's move to Fantasy National. And went ahead and set this for the last 36 rounds, last 3 months, all the usual stuff here the past couple of weeks now that we are in the PGA Tour playoffs. And the first thing that we do, now that we know the speeds of the greens and what types and all that, this will be a little bit of review from last night, but let's take a look at fast and lightning putting on Bermuda Greens. I'm going to have to expand this out. Let's go to 1-1. That should be enough rounds. And I believe it is. Oh, yeah. So, again, this is a review from last night, but your top 10 putters on fast and lightning Bermuda Greens since the start of the calendar year. Sepp Straka, Cam Smith, Scott Stallings, Sam Burns, Adam Scott, Sung Jae, Scotty Scheffler, Hideki, Billy Horschel, and Patrick Cantlay. It's interesting to see Hideki here. His Bermuda performance is generally not good. So let's see what we have here. The BMW was not Bermuda. The Sony, that's all it is in the Sony. 7.3. Hideki doesn't gain 7.3 very often, if at all. Is that the highest? I mean, that's the highest going back to 2020. So clearly an outlier, a spike performance, but it is available to him, I should say. Phoenix is also Bermuda, and that was a very solid putting performance for him. Genesis is POA. Byron Nelson is, I think it's bent. Now I'm going to have to check. Yeah. Okay. So he's had some solid putting performances this year on Bermuda, but again, historically says that that's probably a huge outlier. It's not just an outlier, it's probably a huge outlier. But there you go. There is Hideki's putting. Surprisingly, because anytime you think of Bermuda Greens, you should think Billy Horschel. However, we looked at this, I believe it was at the Wyndham. Again, anytime you hear Bermuda Greens, you should think Billy Horschel. But his prowess on Bermuda is more so on, say, average speed greens. As the speed of the greens get faster, particularly with Bermuda, Billy Horschel doesn't fare as well. Now, he'd putt well at the Wyndham. The Memorial is bent. Heritage, again, is Bermuda, but it's fast. The Arnold Palmer, Bermuda. So, I mean, he's a really good Bermuda green putter. But at the Wyndham, for whatever reason, he was losing ground on the field whenever the speeds were lightning. So in fact, let me remove the fast just to see if that's true after the Wyndham. So he's 9th here. If we just look at lightning, yeah, so he's 9th. To be expected, I guess, in a very small field of 30, but I vividly remember him dropping in rankings when it was lightning Bermuda. But anyway, again, anytime you hear Bermuda Greens, you got to think Billy Horschel. And Billy was where I planted my flag last year in the Tour Championship. He was one of the most cheap players in DraftKings last year, and he played extremely well and won me some money last year. Nothing outright or anything, but I had a very successful DFS last year thanks to Billy Horschel, because he was basically being forgotten since he was, 29th or 28th in terms of strokes gained and all that stuff. So that's our goal this week, is to find somebody that is cheap. I'm not saying these people for sure, but somebody like Hoagie or Wise or Post and Cage, Lee Harmon, these players that are nowhere near even the middle of the pack in pricing. We'll have to figure out who is unique on Wednesday and go from there, but that is our goal, is to find the unique player who is going to make a run at maybe the Tour Championship, but even in the top 5 is going to be our big focus this week. So I do have the starting strokes for players, and I've got that in an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll take a look at a lot of that stuff later on. But here is a look at the putting. We looked at Don Ross designs, and I only focused on the Rocket Mortgage and the Wyndham. I am going to expand the timeline here, but just to show you, there were 3 players that played in both. Zalatoris played well, Stallings played well. Adam Scott, I think, had middling success. Finau won the Rocket Mortgage. The Wyndham went to Joo Hyung Kim. So let's see. Let's go to 2021. See how many rounds we have here. Like Zalatoris has played both of those tournaments and made the cut in all 4, it looks like. Stallings made the cut in 3 of the 4. So if you want to take a look at specifically Don Ross' performance, I don't want to go too far back, but this is 4 tournaments. The 2021 Rocket Mortgage, the 2021 Wyndham, 2022 Rocket Mortgage, 2022 Wyndham. So 16 possible rounds. Your top players on Don Ross designs the past 2 seasons: Patrick Cantlay, Cameron Young, Sungjae, Tony Finau, Jon Rahm, Scott Stallings, Xander, Billy Horschel, Max Homa, JT, and Victor Hovland. Again, take this with quite a bit of a grain of salt when you see Jon Rahm has, it looks like, 1 tournament. Yeah, the Tour Championship. So the 2021 Tour Championship is in there as well. So 5 tournaments. I forgot about that. So, Jon Rahm, only 1 tournament. Xander, only 1 tournament. Now, somebody like Sungjae, Scott Stallings, Zalatoris, you can put a little bit of confidence. You can put more trust into their numbers since they have more than one tournament, essentially. Somebody like Straka, I would put at least a little bit of confidence in because he at least has double-digit amount of rounds. And he has missed the cut in 3 of the 4 tournaments, 3 of the 5, that comprise this set of data. So he only had one good performance, and that was the 2021 Wyndham, where it looks like he played pretty well. Straka, top 15, so yeah. But that looks, again, to be an outlier, considering he has really struggled the other 3 Don Ross courses or tournaments that he played. So, anyway, so there's a look at Don Ross designed performance. Again, I'm not going to put hardly any weight, if any. If I'm choosing between a couple of players and I know Stallings has enough rounds and he's played well, that might provide a tiebreaker, but again, not putting much into it. Normally when fairways are this difficult to hit, I might look at some driving metrics when fairways are difficult to hit, but we'll see that fairways really aren't a big factor, especially in a tour championship setting where you would think that you would need to be precise. Again, it's just more bombs away, really. I think the last thing that we want to look at, 2 things, I guess. We saw last night in the course breakdown how the winners, the off the tee, has really jumped up in terms of importance. Approach fell off, but putting, if you're making putts, you're going to give yourself a really good chance to win. And then as we move down the leaderboard, essentially to top 5s, top 10s, it's more approach based. So I think what would be prudent, just to take a look at off the tee, just to see. So in the last 3 months, your top off the tee players: Sung Jae, Cameron Young, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Corey Connors, Matt Fitzpatrick, Will Zalatoris, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, and Rory. So maybe a couple of surprising names here, like Sungjae being number 1. I would have never guessed that. Burns will be the biggest mover. Okay. Like I said last week, I'm really curious to know if you that there are other golfers on the PGA Tour. But Shot, thanks for jumping in, chat. I was high on Sam Burns. I wouldn't say he disappointed last week. He was just kind of meh. John Rahm, Rory, these guys really kind of took advantage of their length. Even Patrick Cantlay, he moved it last week quite a bit. Sam Burns just kind of, it almost seemed like he went through the motions, if that makes sense. In fact, I'm just going to bring him up real quick. Like, top 20 in a 70-68 player field, middling. The irons were not there, but we talked last week about his putter. While he's most known for Bermuda, so that's positive for him. I mean, he was just a good putter in general, so that stayed true. 2.5 strokes to lose 2.5 on approach. He hasn't done that since early this year, so that looks to be a bit of an outlier. Sure, I don't know how much we're going to go deep into the Sam Burns dive, but seeing 2.5 here, I'm more willing to say, it was a bad week. At least irons. Bermuda Burns, I mean, you're right. I was mentioning that anytime you think of Bermuda Greens, the first person that you should think of is Billy Horschel. Sam Burns is starting to put himself in that category, but Billy Horschel is Bermuda Greens. So that's where I'll leave it in terms of putting on Bermuda. It is Billy Horschel. But anyway, so hey Joey, how you doing? Thanks for jumping in chat and tuning in tonight. How have you been? Did you play any DFS or have any wagers for the BMW? I haven't seen you on here in a while, so it's good to catch up with you. But surprisingly, for as good as Sam Burns generally is off the tee, he's been pretty poor in relation to everyone else in the field this week. So that's something he'll have to clean up. I'll be heavy on Billy Ho. Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a good mindset to have. It all kind of depends on ownership, obviously, but I don't imagine he'll be terribly popular. But anyway, there's a look at off the tee, and then let's take a look at strokes gained approach. It's just the most important statistic. I don't think you'll be able to convince me otherwise. So your top 10 strokes gained approach players in the last 3 months: Tony Finau, Corey Connors, Scott Stallings, Rory, Joaquin Niemann, Xander, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, Sam Burns, and Colin Morikawa. So even with the poor performance last week, Sam Burns is still in the top 10. So that's a positive there. He is number 2 in putting, just overall putting, no Bermuda or anything like that. So, I mean, Sam Burns does have a lot going for him. He starts at -5. So it's going to be difficult to say that he's going to be the biggest mover unless you're picking him to win, which, knowing you, I think that was your subtle way of picking Sam Burns to win. I don't know if I'll go there, but again, this seems like it should be a good fit for Sam Burns. So we'll see. And then I gathered a lot of data on these players and their performance at East Lake. So we'll see how that looks as well. So that is a look at the overview or review, the umbrella page, if you will, here at East Lake, the strokes gained view in Fantasy National. Don't think we're going to do too much in terms of scoring because it's right at average. Rough length is average. We've looked at green speeds. We looked at Don Ross. So yeah, let's go ahead. Actually, you know what? One more thing here. Let's take a look at no-cut events. They don't have the BMW set as a no-cut event, even though the data is in there. So let's do what we did. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to the beginning of the PGA Tour season just to get a feel for who has played these no-cut events well. Not nearly enough. I think we went back to January 2020 in our prep for the BMW. So let's do that. So since the start of 2020, 1/1/2020, your top 10 performers are in no-cut events. For whatever reason, the BMW is not in there. At least this year's BMW, so I think Burns can win the stroke play bets, but I don't think he can catch Scheffler and Cantlay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. If you missed the intro, I have not looked any the DraftKings odds. I have been buried in the books, if you will, or buried in the data researching today, so I didn't even get a look at the odds boards. So if he has decent odds for low score without strokes, it might be worth a consideration. But anyway, the top 10, your top 10 performers since the start of 2020 in no cut events. Those players are Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm, Rory, Matt Fitzpatrick, Xander, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, Aaron Wise, and Scotty Scheffler. Again, take Aaron Wise with quite a bit of a grain of salt. He only has 2 tournaments, the 2021 BMW and then the CJ Cup. But he played well in both of them, extremely well in both of them. So, not nothing, but certainly not the confidence in terms of what the data is telling you versus somebody like Rory or Jon Rahm who play these no-cut events often. So, did want to show you that. Let's move on and let's take a look at the historic leaderboards, figure out what we can find in terms of what statistics we think will work here. And I have a couple of ideas. Before we go forward, this is the standings including the starting strokes. So Cantlay was your tour champion last year. Jon Rahm made a run at him. Kevin Na made a big run. So this isn't particular to the low strokes. I think Jon Rahm was the low actual stroke player last year. Could be wrong. But this is their performance. The starting stroke's not factored into this. So you can see like Jon Rahm 9.4. I think he was the highest. Yeah. Rahm, Na, Schauffele, all that. So let's see. I think we've pretty much got this narrowed down. The strokes gain approach, very important. Guys who tend to putt well, rise, makes a lot of sense. Let's move on into fairways and greens. And I was mentioning that the fairways just don't seem terribly important. And like last year, it really kind of wasn't. Like, look, your leader in fairways finished in the bottom 2/3. Ninth, that's the top third, but it's not anything astronomical. Like, I'd be looking for top 5 if I wanted to see a whole lot of strong correlation. I don't see much here in terms of fairways. Conversely, greens, decent. Kokrak still a little bit less than the top third. These two are just inside the top third. But your winner and a top 5 tied for the lead in greens and kind of ran away from the others in terms of greens and regulation gained. So that is definitely something that we are going to want to focus on, greens and regulation. Let's look at distance. Bryson was, had an okay finish, but look here. I mean, Rory, Stewart Cink, Sergio, even a little lower down, Hideki, Scheffler. These guys, it didn't prove to be vital to have positive or lots of distance. And when everybody is hitting the ball far, there's really not a whole lot to gain by going even further. Instead, I'm thinking proximity. I'm thinking greens because they're a little bit less common to hit here than the tour average. Now the outlier to that is fairways. And we just looked. Fairways just wasn't a big factor. So that's kind of an outlier in that regard. But I'm thinking greens, and greens really only on this view, in the driving view. At least that was the way it was last year. Let's take a look at 2020 fairways. This was my best week of year last year. Nah, was huge for me. Not feeling extremely confident this time around though. I think there's a couple of players that we'll look at that I might be able to steer you towards, or at least have you think about. I didn't find Billy Horschel really until Monday's data dive, and then when I really dug into it Tuesday. So I'm kind of there with you right now, although I do have an inclination towards a couple players right now. But 2020, now Dustin Johnson, probably one of your leaders. Yeah, your second in distance. But again, like Cameron Champ, bottom, 20, 30%. Finau, middle of the pack. Lonto Griffin, middle of the pack. So it doesn't look like distance is a big factor. Fairways, I mean, top third again. Sungjae. But you come down, like you got 3 straight two poor performances and a middling. Yeah, so fairways, that's 2 years that fairways haven't been all that important. Now, you have Victor, who was also there in greens and regulation in 2021. Sungjae, again, top third. Then you got 5th, 2nd, 8th, 7th, 2nd, 4th, 1st. So greens seem to be very, very important. And look here, again, you're top of the leaders in greens and regulation, kind of running away from the others. So interesting to note there. Let's take a look at sand saves just very quickly. I don't think there's much here. I don't see it. 2021. We'll do another look here very quickly at sand saves. Fairly strong. I mean, Patrick Reed was atrocious in terms of a finish. Burns was pretty bad, but your winner, sand save, Rahm, Schauffele. So last year, sand saves proved to be a little bit, but I'm still under the impression that it is just greens here at Eastlake. So with that in mind, let's move to fairways and greens, and we're just going to look at greens and regulation. I'm wondering if I need to add any filters. The course isn't long. I mean, it's close to 7,400, but it's not long. Par 70, no. I don't see anything that would signify that we need to add a filter. So, let's move this in. Clearly, we don't want all the way back to 2020. So your top greens and regulation game players in the past 3 months: Corey Connors, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Xander, Rory, Sungjae, Joaquin Niemann, Jon Rahm, Will Zalatoris, and Patrick Cantlay. All right, there's Billy, 11th. You give him greens with his putting prowess. Sam Burns right under him, same deal. So interesting to see that positive stuff there. All right. Again, I think that's really the only thing we want to look at. I'll show you sand saves in case 2020 was an outlier. Top sand saves players: Patrick Cantlay, JT Poston, Max Homa, Xander, Tom Hoge, Brian Harman, JT, Rory, Sam Burns, and Jordan Spieth. Okay. All right. I'm going to sort back on greens. Where's Victor? Because Victor does very well with greens and regulation here. He's next to last. Very interesting. Let's take a look at Victor, and we're going to go to distance accuracy. Let's take a look at his greens and regulation leading into the Tour Championship last year. So he had his 7.3, 1.9, 4.9. I mean, he was very good at greens and regulation coming into the Tour Championship. And really, well, I was going to say really he's been okay, but like last week was awful in terms of greens. I don't know if he hit a green at all. The Memorial was bad. So he's quite a bit in less form than last year in terms of green and regulation gained. Something to think about. But he does love greens here at Eastlake. So, yeah, I think that's really going to be it for the fairways and greens view. We'll move to birdies and bogeys. Again, I don't know how much this is going to play a factor, just because the course plays to right at average. Maybe we can see if a birdie or birdies or bogeys are more important. Apologies, just making sure I am able to see Twitch chat as well. Birdies, a little strong. 4.4 being the highest. This is last year, but yeah, about half. That's fair. So 4.4, 8.4. Oh my goodness, look at this. Third, second, ninth, fifth, first. Holy smokes. That's very strong. A lot stronger than the birdies. So let's check 2020. Birdies and Bogies. So your winner was much more birdies. So was number 2. Birdies, 5.2, very top heavy. 5.2 versus 6.8, and still very top heavy. So 2 straight years of bogeys being stronger. We'll check 2019 just to make sure. Again, your winner was more positive in birdies, but overall, looks like you had more in terms of bogeys. So here's what's interesting. The birdies gained, you had 3 players that were very, very strong at 6-6, 5-6, 5-6, whereas the bogeys were much more condensed. But look at the correlation. Very strong. So I am under the impression that bogeys are going to be more important than the birdies. So, and I'm only going back to 2019 because that's when the staggered scoring format was implemented. So, we'll move to birdies and bogeys. Let's take a look at bogeys avoided. And again, I don't see any filter needed. This plays to right at average. Average easy. But you go back a little further, it was a little difficult, a whole lot of average. So maybe it's played on the easier side lately, just due to the staggered scoring format. Guys are just pin seeking, and they know that they're going to get good money anyway for being here. So they just balls to the walls, essentially. Probably what's going on there. But anyway, for the top finishers, it was bogeys avoided. So your top bogey avoiders in the past 3 months: Tony Finau, Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, Jon Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, Brian Harman, Xander, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Billy Horschel. If you want to combine that with birdies, you've got Tony Finau first in birdies and first in bogeys. Not sure if that can get beat. I don't know. Rory first and second. Scotty Scheffler 8th and 3rd. Patrick Cantlay 3rd and 4th. The only other one that's top 10 in both is Xander at 7th and 8th. Okay. Eagles does not look to be all that important. So let's take a look at opportunities. I like to do this every week. Who's giving themselves opportunities and converting a lot, or vice versa. So somebody that you might want to be a little cautious of, perhaps. Sorry, I hate this. Can you still see all 30? Yeah, okay. So Cameron Young has been converting, but not giving himself a lot of opportunities. Don't be fooled by the graph. Take a look at your y-axis. So this is less than a tenth. So he's basically neutral on all 3 of these. So it's not that he's a bad putter. It's just he's not as fantastic as the graph may make it seem. And his putter has been, he had a terrible St. Jude. I mean, that's a -1/2, but I mean, that's not really all that bad in the grand scheme of things. But he's been pretty cold, at least at the measured events. Now he's solo second the Open. I can't imagine that's anything less than field average. But he did miss the cut at the U.S. Open. He missed the cut at the Scottish. So Cameron Young would be somebody that I'd be a little bit wary about, just because the putter has not been cooperating. He's still gaining birdies, but he's not giving himself a lot of opportunities. So if that continues, I would think that the birdies gained would drop, as in come down to, like, say, 15th, 20th. Somebody else, Jordan Spieth, only 25th in opportunities, but 8th in birdies, which is surprising because Spieth has really struggled on the greens, at least by Jordan Spieth standards. Minus 1.1, minus 2, minus 3.2 at the PGA. I mean, earlier this year it was real bad. So Spieth might be somebody else to be perhaps cautious with. Burns, but I've said that the past couple of weeks and he's played okay. So, and he's a good putter. So I'm much more willing to accept Sam Burns' numbers here because he is a very good putter. On the flip side, somebody like Justin Thomas. We know he gives himself a lot of opportunities. He has not converted many of them lately. And I mean, that's just Justin Thomas. When the flat stick gets going, it's really hard to beat him. I mean, look at the putting last week, even 2 weeks ago. Now, the issue with Justin Thomas is the irons haven't been there. The irons haven't been there consistently. So that's the issue with Justin Thomas coming into this week. Connors, Neiman, somebody or two players you might want to take a look at perhaps are getting undervalued. That's why I was so high on Corey Connors, because he was giving himself so many opportunities, hadn't been converting them. He finally did a little bit last week. I mean, he's still negative in terms of putting, but I mean, you just can't argue with the irons. I mean, look at this. The 5 measured events, that's where this is coming from. So we don't have these 3. Missed the cut at the U.S. Open. That could have been poor. Who knows? The Open, I mean, top 30. Scottish was poor. But look at this. I mean, 5.6. Field average, 4.5. 5.7. 8.1. I like Corey Connors again just because of the irons. And I was really happy to have singled in on him and Scott Stallings. Corey Connors was like 8% owned. That helped fuel my good week along with Scott Stallings. So I do not think Corey Connors is going to be that unique again. But if he is, so yeah, I think that's what we're going to focus on. Definitely bogeys avoided. I might look at opportunities gained and put that in the final mixed condition model, but I'm definitely going to be focused on bogeys. So again, quick recap of the bogeys, or top bogey avoiders in the past 3 months: Tony Finau, Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, John Rahm, Neiman, Brian Harman, Xander Fitzpatrick, and Billy Horschel. All right, let's move to the proximity. And this is one of the statistics that I think is going to be very, very important. I don't know about a range yet, if any. But I just looked at total procs today. I mean, look at these big numbers here. Like, Justin Thomas was negative 71. That's not great, but, you know, you've got 383 positives. Like Abraham Answer, negative 0.2 for 4 rounds. Field average. Let's just call it what it is, field average. So if you look at procs total, you got Tony Finau, who is, again, a top 30, essentially. A couple of poor performances from Van Rooyen and Sink, but your winner, top 3, top 5, runner-up. And these numbers are pretty big. Whereas if you come down here, you get these big numbers, and you got some poor performances. Some very poor performances. So I really like the idea of procs total. If we sort on the actual leaderboard, do we get a sense of anything? These are the top 10. 125 to 150 is a lot of positive. Okay, let's try that. 125 to 150. Not the strongest. 4th, 5th. 200 plus, maybe? Not really, no. Okay, 175 to 200 is very top heavy. Very top heavy. But then very not. Once you get past it. 150 to 175. Now that's extremely top heavy as well. So we're looking at these two so far. Let's go 2020. Proximity. DJ was your winner. And again, it's not field average, but it's close. Again, that's over 4 rounds. But you have these pretty big triple-digit numbers. And again, let's look at the top 10. You've got 3 players that are negative, and none of them are triple digits. Now, Hatton and Rory, those are bad. Not terrible, but bad. But again, I just see total procs. Again, the top 30 essentially. This Victor at 20th is bad. Cam Smith at 24th is bad. Let's see. This looks like the 175 to 200 is the most important this in 2020. 125 to 150, again, only 2 were negative. So maybe that's something. But when you sort on it, it's not, the strongest in terms of direct correlation. 175 to 200. Yeah, this one's a little stronger. So far we've got 2 years of 175 to 200. Let's check 2019 very quickly. I imagine this will probably go a little bit longer tonight, especially since last night was short because of no data, and then once I edited the video, it got really short. Let's see. 2019, you got 3 clunkers. These would be clunkers that made cuts, but then some very, very strong right after that. This is 150 to 175, it looks like. So here's your top 11. 100 to 125 was very strong in terms of the amount of players positive. 150 to 175. So I don't know if I feel confident in a range. I'd be curious to hear your all's take, either in chat or put it in the comments. But I still say procs is going to be important. Maybe not as much as I thought it was going to be, but I still think it's fairly important. So with that, we come to the field this week. Your top players in total procs in the past 3 months: Aaron Wise, Corey Connors, Joaquin Niemann, Scott Stallings, Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Sung Jae, Will Zalatoris, Adam Scott, and Brian Harmon. If there was a range, I still think it's the 175 to 200, but I'm not confident in it. So let's just kind of take a look at this range here, because it kind of fluctuated between these 3, in my opinion. So players that are good at all 3 of those ranges, you got Niemann, 9th, 7th, and 9th. Yeah, he's the only one that's top 10 in all 3. Like, you have Corey Connors, who's good in the 125 to 150 and the 175 to 200, but god awful at 150 to 175, at least compared to the field, I should say. It's interesting to see Aaron Wise number 1 in total procs when he really only has 2 superb lengths of of approach shots. Okay. All right. But anyway, there's your look at total procs. Again, I don't think I'm going to have any focus on a range. If I do, at least right now, and I'd have to really study it tomorrow, it'd be 175 to 200. But as of this moment, I have no confidence that it is the range we should look at. But I am going to be looking at total procs. All right. We'll move fairly quickly because I do want to get to Microsoft Excel. 2021. We saw the par 3s just aren't that important. They're not important at the Rocket Mortgage. They're not important at the Wyndham. They're just not important on these Don Ross designs. I mean, look, your winner was a 0.8. The highest number was a 3.8, and he's a middling clunker of a made cut, essentially, because he's barely top half. I just don't see it. 2.1, 3.5, 1.2. Don't see it there. Par threes. Again, like your winner was negative. Yeah, I just don't see much in the par threes. So we're going to go to the par fours. I think this is where we're going to start finding some good data to look at. So let's go par fours. Now, Cantley didn't play them all that well, but Rahm and Na did, Hovland did, Xander did. So look at that, very strong right off the top there. Berger, top 30. Sergio would have been a clunker of a make cut. Bryson. So pretty strong here in par fours, which is to be expected. Let's see, there are no 0 to 350s. You got 2 from this range. Okay, yeah, that's pretty darn strong. Pretty darn strong. I don't know if we want to put a whole lot of emphasis on the 2 holes, but well, I'm seeing it now. Like, look, there's just 1.5 in halves. So 5th and 9th, okay, still okay. You got much bigger numbers here. But Connors, poor finish. Rory's a clunker of a made cut, essentially. 450 to 5. Okay, decent. And then you have the one long par 5, or par 4, excuse me. So, interesting to see there. Not really confident that we got an answer as to which length of par 4 was most important. We're still seeing just par 4s. Look at, oh my gosh. Look at that. Yikes. That's very strong. 350 to 4. 400, 450. So I felt like it was 400, 450 in 2021, but barely. This one's pretty strong. This one's not strong at all. I mean, look, 27th out of 30, 20th, 24th. So it looks like it's been the 400 to 450. Let's check 2019 because it's the first year of the staggered scoring. Let's see. I mean, again, really strong, top heavy. You do have Bryson. You know, that would have been a middling finish of a cut made and then some more strong finishes. So 350 to 4. Again, it's been about the same for all 3 years. 400 to 450. A little bit less than 2020. But you have some pretty big numbers in here. 450 to 5. Yeah, I don't know. I think that would make sense. These are the majority of the par 4s here. Because you have 2, 4, oh shoot. Damn it. So you have 2 in here, 4 in here, 5 in here, and 1 here, I think. I gotta cheat. Sorry. You've got 2, 4, 5, and 1. Yeah, okay. I think it's between these two. I still think I lean 400 to 450, but we'll see. So let's move to the par 4s. Par 4s. Your top par 4 performers in the past 3 months. Tony Finau, Rory, Matt Fitzpatrick, Corey Connors, Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, Scott Stallings, Patrick Cantley, Xander, and Jon Rahm. The players that are good in the 2 major lengths here between 400, 500 split, you know, at the 450 mark. Finau, 3rd and 2nd. Rory, 9th and 1st. Scotty Scheffler, 8th and 8th. Those are the only 3 that are top 10 in both of those ranges. All right. Let's see. I was going to do something very quickly around this par 4s. Oh, that's what it is. All right, let's do this very quickly. So 469, it won't go in between at all. 391 could jump into the 400s. 400, 450. This one won't move. This one could go into the 450 to 500. This one doesn't move. This one could come under. That one doesn't move. Maybe 400, 450. This could come under. So if anything, you have some of the 450 to 500s drop into the 400 to 450s. And then this one I could see easily moving into the 400 to 450. So I'm starting to think it's the 400 to 450, to be honest with you. That's where I'm leaning right now. So there's your total par 4 performers. If we look at par 4s, 400 to 450, KH Lee, Corey Connors, Tony Finau, Cam Smith, Scott Stallings, JT Poston, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler, Rory, and Sahith Theegala. All right. So we're almost at the hour mark. Still haven't made it to Excel, so I'm going to run through the par 5s very quickly. These were the most important strokes gained here at East Lake. Top 10s, top 5s. Winners really took advantage of them. So with that, and I'm not going to go back here. There's only one in each of the lengths, so I'm thinking it's just going to be par 5s. Your best par 5 performers in the past 3 months: Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Cam Smith, Sahith Theegala, Joaquin Niemann, Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns, Tony Finau, Xander, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Okay. All right, let me bring up Microsoft Excel, and I did a whole lot of research today. So what this is 2021, 2020, and then I got 2019 down here. Started, so like last year, Patrick Cantlay started at -10. He shot -11. So I didn't add them together, but he won at -21. Rahm was a -20. Thomas 15, so on and so forth. This is just to get an idea of where a player started and, you know, maybe how aggressive they were or laid back or whatnot. I just wanted to see who played well actually, not, you know, the total strokes combined. So this is what this is. So, you know, Zalatoris hasn't played, Straka, so on and so forth. So Scheffler's only played it 1 year, was last year. He started at even. He shot -2 for a cumulative -2. Your top under par player has been Xander. He's played here 3 years. He's averaged a -9. No, that should be total start. I am sorry. So this is, Cantlay was a -8. Yeah. So this is a 18 divided by 2. Sorry, let me do this here real quick. So he's a -3, -4, -2.5, -3.3. Oh God, what's this? 4.3, I think. 2.6. Apologies, let me do this real quick. -6, -7, -2.67, 4, like 1.5, 1.5. He started at -4. He's been at even, so okay. He started at -2, so he's averaged a -1. So, all right. Apologies for that. This is their average start. So Cantlay has averaged starting at a -9 his 2 years. Schauffele at -3. So look here. I mean, Xander Schauffele is averaged starting at -3. You know, not by any means at the bottom of the leaderboard, but he's not pushing the top either. And he's shot -37 cumulative in the 3 years that it's been a staggered scoring format. That is amazing. Rory, he's averaged a starting position just above Xander. He's -26. Now Thomas has averaged a -7 start. So while you see the -25, which is very strong, it really doesn't compete with Rory's and Xander's because of where they've started. Rahm, the same. He started average at -6. He shot 23. Still good, but not as strong. And then Hovland has been very, very strong as well. Average starting at -1.5, and he shot -15 total. Very strong. So that's what this is. That's what this kind of table is right here. And then hopefully you can see the little bit of borders here. That's just separating the standings. So 10, 8, 7, 6, 5. These are at -4, -3, -2, -1, and these players are starting at even. What I have over here, this is being brought in from the early look files that I do. Think of the color coordinated charts. In fact, I did this here for East Lake as well. But these are the two Don Ross designs, Wyndham and Rocket Mortgage. I did not bring in the Tour or I did not list out specifically the Tour Championship. But like Hovland, he's played the Wyndham once, finished 4th, and then he's played the Rocket Mortgage twice, averaged a 13th. Seems like he really likes Don Ross designs. Sungjae, the same. He's averaged a 10th place finish at the Wyndham, 27th at the Rocket Mortgage. Conversely, somebody like K.H. Lee, he's averaged an 81st finish at the Wyndham and a 71st finish at the Rocket Mortgage. So he has not played the two Don Ross courses well. Somebody else here like Sepp Straka has struggled a little bit on Don Ross designs. Let's see. Finau's getting propped up from his win this year. Yeah, so that's what these two charts are, is the Don Ross design courses. Wanted to make sure I brought that to your attention, so that way you can use this in your research moving forward this week. And then finally, we're going to look at specific metrics here at East Lake since the staggered scoring format was implemented. So 2018 prior is not included because they didn't have the staggered start or staggered scoring start. So no surprise here. Xander, all approach and putting. It's what generally wins here. A little bit off the tee. Rory has been good at all facets of it, mainly off the tee. See Billy. You think of Billy being Bermuda. I mean, he's only gained a half of a stroke essentially in 2 times here. Adam Scott, his one time, gained a whole lot in approach and putting. That's something to think about. Now, his off the tee was pretty poor that year. Sam Burns, his one time last year, atrocious in irons, but he put the daylights out. Okay, let's take a look at these greens. And before I forget, let me view freeze panes. These players are in the order simply of their combined cumulative, the score. So that's why Xander's first, Rory's second, Thomas is third. That was just the easiest way to sort them. So that, just explaining that to you. So let's take a look at these greens. Now, Rory hasn't done the best with greens. He's not been bad, but look at the players that have been playing well here. Xander, JT, John Rahm, Victor. Adam Scott hit almost every green that week, apparently. So, okay. We did take a look at sand saves. You see the players at the bottom have some very heavy, poor sand saves. So maybe it is something. Maybe. Yeah, this is what I wanted to see. Birdies versus bogeys. So Xander, more bogeys avoided. Rory's been more birdies. JT, slightly birdies. John Rahm, a whole lot of bogeys avoided. Victor, a whole lot of bogeys avoided. Looks to be about even, but the top players seem to be avoiding bogeys more than gaining birdies. So that checks out. Very quickly here, like the par 3s, looks like 2.4 is the highest. Xander has played those well. Again, I don't know how much that's going to matter. 6.2 in the par 4s. So, yep, that makes some sense. Let's see, what ranges are most of these players playing well? See, you got to come down to Billy before you get a negative in 450 to 500. So maybe it's somewhere in these two. I don't know which one I'm leaning. So again, I'd be interested to hear either in chat, before we leave, or in the comments, which of these two ranges, if any, or if either, you think are more important, or do you think it's just straight up par fours? Because you can't deny the par four importance here. Look at the heavy green, and these are the players that have played the best here. Adam Scott, his 1 year here. It's surprising to see the lack of big numbers here in the par fives. Straight up par fours, I'm tending to agree with you, Shot. If I don't put a range of par fours, then the data model Wednesday night's going to be very, very broad. So that was one of the things that I was really proud of, that I mentioned last night, and how I was proud of my performance, is that I felt like I found a couple of metrics that the rest of the industry weren't focusing on, or if they were, not as much as I did. The 3-putt avoidance, and I think it was the par fours 400 to 450, and they really turned into be a big factor. So maybe they aren't a factor here, maybe they are. I tend to think it's this one, but it's been pretty close between both. Now, the par fives, even though the winners have been very good at them, Patrick Cantlay, Rory won in 2019. He's been actually fairly, field average. A 2.9 here from Patrick Cantlay in par fives. The par 3 number was 2.4. So, are the par fives not as important as I thought? Maybe. Interesting to see that. And then lastly, I do want to look at procs. I know we've gone over a little bit, but procs. Like, look at these big numbers. Like, Rory and JT haven't been great. Xander, John Rahm, Victor. Again, Adam Scott, his 1 year he played here, he played it fairly well. If we try to get a feel for these ranges, like, you've got a lot here in the 125 to 150, which I guess would make sense, because if players are getting a whole lot of distance, and you've got a lot of these, 400, we'll say 430 to 460 yard par fours, you're starting to get approaches into, maybe this range. So maybe it is 125 to 150 now that you think about that. Like, you got to come all the way down to Patrick Cantlay before you get a second negative. That's fairly strong. Xander might win the whole thing. So I don't want to ruin any research or ruin some answers that I posted on Twitter. But go check my Twitter post today around research. There were two specific, unique, and interesting facts that I found in the 3 years that it's been a staggered scoring format. You might have found one of the players, Shot. That's what I will say. I will neither confirm or deny it, but you might have found one of the players. So, but I think that is going to do it for the Data Dive show for the Tour Championship. Hopefully I've given you some players or some statistics to focus on as you move forward in the week. Again, it's so important to try to find your one player that you think is going to be unique, that you think is going to climb up the leaderboard, like Billy Horschel last year, like Kevin Na last year, which, as much as I was high on Billy Horschel, I stayed away from Kevin Na. So that came back. It didn't bite me, but it could have been a really good week if I did Billy and Kevin Na. But that's what we're trying to find. And it's going to be kind of an all or nothing week when you only have 30 players in the field, and your fellow contestants, You know, they're drawing from that same 30-player pool, so there's a lot of ownership going around. You know, you'll probably have Justin Thomas and Xander and Rahm, Rory in the 30%. So you're really going to have to try to find your uniqueness, because you're going to be 4v4s, maybe even 3v3s a lot. So you really got to find your one guy and plant your flag and kind of be comfortable with it being a bit of an all or nothing week. So, Shot, Joey, thanks for jumping in chat. Love the interaction. Appreciate the support that you all show to the channel with comments and jumping in chat and all that stuff. So thank you all, and thank you to everyone out there that supports the channel, comments on videos, tunes in, watches and listens. I really do appreciate it. I have fun doing what I do, and it's all thanks to you all. So for all of the wagers that you've made so far this week at the Tour Championship, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week at the Tour Championship, until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.